Hi, I'm Megan Cuddy, Program Director of Drug Free Rogers Lowell, a program of the Rogers Lowell Area Chamber of Commerce. Drug Free Rogers Lowell is a coalition comprised of concerned community citizens. In 2002, the Benton County Methamphetamine Task Force was formed as a subcommittee of Drug Free Rogers Lowell. This year will mark our 7th annual Methamphetamine Awareness Month. The purpose of the month is to educate the community on the devastation of methamphetamine. The task force will present the information to youth in all Benton County schools, along with civic and community groups. Media will also be implemented to reach the remaining population. As you will hear throughout this video, methamphetamine has no boundaries. It does affect everyone.
Well, I think we have seen over the years the number of drug offenders truly explode. Back in the early 70s, I think we had something like 26 drug offenders within the entire Department of Correction. Of course, the total number of offenders was much lower then, but 26. Now, at any given time, we have about 3,000. As far as methamphetamine goes, meth is a huge problem for us. For one thing, the offenders who are meth users come in very addicted. It takes them about a year or a year and a half, really, if they're hardcore users, before they really start to make sense. And then another 6 months or so before they stop blaming everyone else and they realize that they were their own worst enemy. They're the reason they're here. Plus, methamphetamine causes bad health problems. We have inmates who are meth users who come in, as many of our drug offenders do, with enlarged hearts. Plus, meth offenders have a unique problem, and that is their teeth are terrible. I cannot tell you how many come in with rotten, missing, cracked off, broken off teeth. And there's really not any way to save them. You have to try to clear up the infection and then remove what's left of the tooth. It's called meth mount, and we see it every day.
Methamphetamine has a very innate ability to cause one of the neurotransmitters or one of the brain chemicals, neurotransmitter called dopamine, which is our feel-good chemical. It's what makes us enjoy what we eat and what we do. It's sound of music, color of the sky. It's an enjoyment. So when you take methamphetamine, your brain has a massive dumping of that dopamine into the system. So you have this huge surge of dopamine into your system. So you feel good, and you feel too good. You feel better than you've probably felt in some time. The devastating problem with this is once this chemical, or brain chemical, our natural chemical, has been released into our system, there's no more left. You have this immediate surge, and then it's gone. So these people go from very high, elated feelings to the deepest and darkest place imaginable. That dopamine can't be replaced with any speed. Okay? It takes time. It often takes days, weeks, and even months for your brain chemical to try to restore itself. So with that, you have this immediate high, you have the deepest, darkest low that you can imagine. Trying it once is the problem, because once you do, it seems to put a chain of events that causes the user to use again and again and again. Usually when we see people die from methamphetamine, it's from the powerful stimulant effect. The heart rate is racing, they have a stroke, they have a heart attack, they have serious complications from that. And the tragic thing is they may not die, which is tragic enough, but they may end up having such a severe stroke that they can't feed themselves, they can't care for themselves, they end up in a nursing home. And how tragic is that for anybody of any age, but particularly the young or a young adult or a teenager, to spend the rest of their life after a devastating stroke due to a methamphetamine use. It seems to span all ages. I've seen it in the young, I've seen it in the elderly, I've seen it in all socioeconomic classes. It doesn't seem to discriminate. And the effects that it has and how it works and the implications it does to the body and the mind is truly devastating. It's the best word to describe it. And it has such outreaching effects, not only to the patient, the family, the friends, the loved ones, and it is the most difficult drug that we deal with.
Now, honestly, I can say that you know, I've gone to $300,000–$400,000 homes and found methamphetamine all over the place now. It's not just your ran down low economy housing or apartments or trailers that have methamphetamine. It's everywhere. It's not just, you know, a drug for, you know, for people living in bad situations. I've seen people that are, you know, make $500,000 a year that are transporting and using it, you know, and everything. It's not. However, you will find more methamphetamine throughout the city or the county in the low-income areas. However, that's not the only place it is these days. It's everywhere.
What is the most important thing the legal community can tell children about methamphetamine?
The very first thing that they should know is that it does ruin their lives, and the lives of those around them. We have seen so many cases where one person's addiction impacts so many people, children, friends, family. It's just a scourge, and that's the first thing they need to know, is that it ruins their bodies, their minds, and in the long run, just taking that first hit, that first time, has such a terrible impact later on, because it is so addictive that it stops them from doing things that they would want to do later on in life. And so just that very message of don't even try it is important to get out to the children in our community.
Because of meth, I lost just about everything that I owned, plus every dollar that I was bringing in working went towards it. I lost a house I was staying at, the vehicle I was driving at the time. I pretty much lost everything. I probably spent, in a year, I probably spent $12,000 to $13,000 on it. One of the nicknames for methamphetamines is it's a demon, and it is a demon. Once you let it get into you, it will not let go. It's the worst possible choice you could ever make, aside from taking someone's life. And you're practically doing that to yourself if you decide to try it. I mean, you're basically just saying, here, you know, take my life, take my blood.
In terms of damage on a 1 to 10 scale, where is meth versus other drugs?
It's a 20. I take care of a lot of patients that have been exposed to and used various forms of drugs of abuse, abuse prescription medications, abuse illegal and legal drugs, poison themselves in a lot of different ways. And out of all of the drugs that I've seen and all the patients that I've taken care of, methamphetamine is the most dangerous, it is the most potent, and it is devastating not only to the patient, but the family and the people they're with.
Generally, a meth offender is going to be with us about 10 years, 10 calendar years for a drug offense. We have some meth offenders who are doing much longer than that. And I don't think a lot of folks realize that for drugs, you can actually get life. We have people in the Arkansas Department of Correction who are never going home, and all they were drug offenders. Of course, they were bad drug offenders, and they were selling, but they've got a life sentence. And in Arkansas, a life sentence means as long as you're drawing a breath on the planet. In other words, that court expects you to die at the Department of Correction, to never go home.
You know, really, there's stories on what I call kind of both sides of the fence. I think one of the most poignant that I can't seem to get out of my mind stories was told to me by a law enforcement official that went into a home where meth was being used by both parents, and there were 2 children. One was about 4 or 5, the other was a baby in diapers. And that diaper had been on that child so long that they had to take the baby to the hospital to have it surgically removed. That is such a visual in my mind. I just can't get over that.
Not only do we see children that have been traumatically injured from methamphetamine labs, explosions, fires, chemical inhalation, spills. Those are definitely patients that we see, but we also see patients that have been impacted by meth. And how tragic is it when the parent or the grandparent comes in that is strung out on methamphetamine, and they've got a baby in a car seat.
Our other problem is what we call Mexican drug trafficking organizations that are manufacturing methamphetamine, specifically methamphetamine ice, the smokable form of meth, in Mexico, and then they're smuggling it up to Arkansas in quantities 20, 30, 40 pounds at a time, which is a significant amount of methamphetamine if you look at compared to what the small toxic labs do, 1 to 2 ounces. We're also seeing a trend now that a new method here in Arkansas, it's called the one-pot method, and it's basically made in like a plastic 2-liter Coke bottle, and that process only makes 2 to 3 grams of methamphetamine at a time. But we are seeing a trend here in the last year or two of an increase in those type of methamphetamine laboratories.
Promise that your community is impacted, your neighborhood is impacted, your schools and our economy are impacted. We have seen that it is still the #1 drug threat in Arkansas. A recent report on national drug policy indicates that meth is still our #1 drug threat in our state, and we know that the costs are enormous. Cleanup costs, costs of child care, health care costs, court costs, incarceration costs, the costs for law enforcement, overtime. It goes on and on. So anyone who thinks that their tax burden, that their economic situation and that their community are not impacted by meth, they're wrong.
Arkansas was one of the early states to ban pseudoephedrine from over-the-counter sales, and that had a major impact on reducing the number of methamphetamine labs throughout the state. But what we're seeing now, of course, is still the dramatic need for a lot of people to use methamphetamine, that have that addiction. And so now we're seeing a lot of community outreach, a lot of drug court programs, a lot of community outreach like we're doing here to get into the schools. And we're recognizing that it has to be a global effort, a united effort across every front, and everyone has to work together to solve this problem. And I think Arkansas is a good example, from the Attorney General to the local level. People are getting the message, and we're proud of those efforts.
We know that every young adult faces new challenges every day. Making the right decisions are tough, but ultimately, you owe it to yourself to make the best choices, especially when it comes to drugs. You owe it to yourself, your family, and community. You owe it to yourself. Don't even try meth once.